Hello, the internet. It's me, Ashley. And we're here, Archetype, sponsored by Lenovo. We are in part 4 of our Dervish character, which thankfully should be wrapping up today. So keeping it strong with every 4 episodes doing characters. So my plan today is to do some poly painting and do some coloring and stuff to get this guy finalized, and then we'll get into posing it. So hopefully poly painting shouldn't take too long, and then we can spend the rest of the time kind of posing. So if you guys have watched my stream before, you know that posing day is always a pretty chill, fun day. But I definitely am trying to figure out what kind of colors I want for this character. Because also picking the colors now will determine what our next character's colors could possibly be. Which I could kind of talk a little bit about too. But I think for now I'm going to start doing some maybe baseline. If he's a desert character, we can kind of maybe look at some reference of what kind of like deserty things could be. Got some browns and greens and things. So yeah, we're going to just start blocking in some things at value first and see where we go. But speaking of our next character, as I mentioned before, so if you're familiar with the way I, kind of set up these streams and stuff, I don't like to just do one character that's kind of just out there in the ether. I like to do characters that, fit alongside other characters and whatnot. So the last 2 streams that we've done, both characters came from like the same world. So we did a, trickster character, and then we did like a brute type character. And they both kind of were supposed to feel like they were, within the same realm. And so for this one, maybe if there's some suggestions from people watching and stuff, but my initial idea is to, if we did the, this kind of like desert mech character, maybe our next archetype can be like the desert creature that it fights, so we'll do so mech versus organic, and then we can get into, desert creature design type stuff, which is personally some of my favorite type of design work to do. So that could be pretty fun. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for our next character as we wrap up this guy. I'm just going to fill in some colors for now. As you can see, all the kitbash pieces are kind of in one, one subtool, but we can split these out and stuff later. Might be easier to split them off into, maybe arms, for example, and torso. Be easy enough to split them off, so we can do that. So it's easier to color in general. And then later it'll also be easier to pose as well, because all these pieces, for example, will be going with the upper body, so that stuff will be good to keep nice and tight and together. I just want to start by blocking out just basic colors first, and then maybe see where we can add some color accents. Instead of this, I picked this yellow, but I think it'd be cooler if it was maybe like a more orangish color. It could be fun. How orange can we go? And it might be, maybe we can do some more muted colors. Could be kind of cool. So I took this guy quite a ways from our previous stream, just for reason being that, I like to keep it 4 episodes and keep it tight that way. But yeah, I added a lot of the cloth and stuff. I went in and redid some of the design stuff on his back. It just really wasn't working for me the way we were doing it before. But hey, Thick Line uses some cool techniques and stuff. But we'll always be kind of exploring and finding what's going to work best for us. And that's kind of the beauty of being able to use something like thick skin, is we can easily go back and go, yeah, maybe this wasn't quite right, or maybe this didn't work. Then we can redo it and do it better the next time. because that's what learning is all about. So yeah, I just want to block in colors, and then I can go to each one and we can, you know, polypaint some extra stuff on it. If we wanted to, we could also maybe do some, you know, later we could do some like damaging and stuff like that. That might be kind of fun to do. But just try to figure out what kind of colors we could do. You know, this green gray with like accents of orange could be kind of fun. I think something like that might be cool. And then being able to accent, you know, different values in different areas. Feels pretty militaristic in that sense. But we can also do something where later there's actually a really easy way to change like hue, saturation, and value. So if we, for example, you know, color this dude, we can go into the color displays and kind of change those up on the fly if we wanted to. So a lot of stuff can get changed later. And that could be something that we could play with. If you go into Polypaint, there will be a adjust colors. And so in here, you actually just get, you know, hue saturation values. So you can slide this around. You can play with the hue and like how saturated that gets, and change the intensity, which is basically meaning brightness. But also, you know, these are also values, different grayscale values. So basically, if, you know, this color is this green one here that's on, I can change the tolerance of which this color is going to be, and then change this one. And so if this is colored multiple different colors, you can change all those colors using this. So it's a really handy little tool to be able to use. You know, I think this type of palette might be kind of boring. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to look up some desert people like clothing, because I know usually they're pretty brightly colored, I think. And I'm going to try to find, you know, some sort of reference that I think I can find some sort of colors that look really cool together, or sort of like color accents that I think are interesting. Because looking at desert could be as our inspiration is, you know, important to kind of keep with that theme and see what we can get if we find something interesting. So, you know, I mean, even a palette that's as simple as something like this, where there's this nice accented blue, but you can also see the colors of people in the background as well. But this like tannish type color with these like darker browns is kind of fun with this accented blue. That could be kind of interesting. There's also some more intense looking ones from like classic paintings and things. But yeah, we'll see what we can go with. Again, maybe if we do like a very tan desert type theme, you know, most animals and stuff for our next character are pretty brightly colored for a variety of reasons that we can get into. So it could be fun to kind of play around with those types of feelings. So I'll start with the head and start blocking out these like blue accent colors and seeing if I can find something that I like as far as a color palette. You know, I think that's looking kind of cool as far as a palette goes. And we can play with doing darker colors. Synth is in the house. Hello. Nice to see somebody in the chat. Chat's been kind of quiet, but we're just getting started. I know it takes a while for some people to come on in, but come on in. I don't bite. But it's going well so far. Can't complain. It's not raining, so that's nice. I like the rain, but I also own puppies, and puppies make make my house muddy if you leave them outside for too long in the rain. So Hi, Kevin. Kevin, I'm not crazy. I know this Kevin, right? I think I know this Kevin. Like I know in real life Kevin. But maybe I'm crazy. I don't know. Oh, chill in San Francisco. Yeah. I know we're getting like your weather up down here. There's a bunch of snow. It's awesome. I gotta take my puppies to go play in the snow. That would be amazing. Ooh. You're speaking my language. Don't make me cancel the stream to go get some ramen. It sounds pretty delicious right now. Oh, Kevin. Well, hello, Kevin. It's been so long since we've chatted. Kevin knew me way back in the day when I was in high school, and we would meet like what, maybe once a week over in Pomona, and we would draw and try to make games and do sprite sheets and do all sorts of fun stuff. Yeah, it feels like so long ago since we've done things like that. It's crazy to think about, actually. Come a long way. Oh no, is my symmetry off? That's it. Look at that. Look at how off that was. That's interesting. Oh yeah, it is slightly off. I wonder how that happened. It looks symmetrical, but is it symmetrical? I'm gonna throw it to the home. Fun times indeed. I remember. Yeah, I always loved your creature design stuff. You always had really cool creatures. Somehow that got moved. Now we're okay though, I think. Okay. Back to, yeah, there we go. It just got off kiltered for some reason. It's good to catch you on the stream. I know it's this is how people meet nowadays, by the way. It's just, online. Ever since COVID happened, everyone just stays at home and doesn't do anything overly exciting. My shaky hands make for great painting. I'm really good at this, guys. I promise. Just trying to play with what could be cool as far as, and I can utilize using for like these masks for these circles. I can use the mask, the circle mask, and you can hold space bar and move these around to kind of get the accurate mask, and then I can colorize these. It's a nice little trick to do. Just keep in mind that it will shoot all the way through your model, so you can see that there'll be stuff down here, but you can just get rid of that. Whoops. By doing that, and then it goes away. So yeah, just keep that in mind. So if you're going to do something like this and invert it, and then fill that object, you would technically have filled the back as well. So just keep that stuff in mind when you're poly painting away. We'd also probably play with the idea of some different types of masking. Also, we're having technical difficulties, so there's no music, which now for me feels super weird, and I'm sad. So somebody come sing me a song. We could maybe do a little bit of like edge wearing using this cavity, or we could make it a little darker. And then if we fill that object there, you can see the kind of effect that we get. To get something that on the blue parts, it almost looks like you get kind of like edge wear or something like that, which could be pretty interesting. But you can play with these different, mask by normals. Peaks and Valleys usually creates a pretty interesting mask that's actually pretty good for edge wear and stuff like that. So you don't have to just fill this. What you can do is, I'm going to select the color that this was, and you can make it a little darker or a little you know, maybe, or it could be lighter, depending on what kind of material you're trying to edge wear. And then I can control H to hide it, and then you can go in and kind of like paint in the areas that you want. You know, this would be kind of like a final step though of you know, once you have all your color blocked in. But yeah, you can go around and add kind of like cool little edge wear to things. And for different colors, obviously, I want to pick, you know, maybe it's worn out bluish, you know, type. You can just get some, I guess I would call them like happy accidents more than anything else, you know, so you can start to kind of look beat up and rusted. I'm also going to switch back my lasso too. There we go. Mark Cox Design Studio, good afternoon. I like saying hi to everybody that pops in the chat. It's always appreciated. I'm going to turn off Lazy Mouse because Lazy Mouse definitely messes me up a little bit when it comes to painting this stuff. But yeah, you can paint like tiny little, you know, breakups and things if you want to. I'm only going to do this on the head. I'm not going to do this for the whole character because then we would never have time to pose. But you can see how even with just like simple poly painting, you could get pretty far with making something look pretty decent from a distance. Cynthia's asked about toggling the mask back on, and the answer is yes. If you hit Control H, so if I toggle this, I can hit Control H, and if I hit it again, it'll just pop on and off. And it's I like it a lot. One, especially while coloring, because if I mask this section, you can hit C to color pick, but you can see if I hit C to color pick where it's masked versus where it's in the shadows, it actually takes that into consideration. So if you're masking something and want to make sure that you're grabbing the same blue, hiding the mask and then doing it is kind of preferred. So yeah, that's a good question. Thanks for asking. You always ask the best questions. I was smart. So usually I like the square, but if I was smart about this, I could actually pick the right alpha shape and not have such a headache and try to fill these in. Because I was trying to hit something roundly, squarely, and that wasn't really working for me. You could also do the same thing with poly painting. Poly paint, if you hold down and do the shift, you can draw in like straight lines, and you can. Oh, it's being weird. It was doing it just 5 seconds ago, but you can basically hold it the same way and draw at different degree angles and stuff. And then you can also hit 1 to repeat the mesh as well, or to repeat that stroke. Even though it's just a paint stroke, you can hit 1 to repeat it. So blue and orange, I think, actually might be a pretty cool combo together. Even though our first inspiration was, you know, just blue and desert, but he's got some like darker browns and stuff on him too, in my reference. So maybe we can play with that as well. I'm trying to think of, I kind of want this to be a lighter color or something that just gives it more breakup. But if I fill it, I lose all the work. But I don't know. I can figure that out though. I kind of want there to be another color in here. But as I work on the rest of it, I can kind of try to figure out what kind of color I'd want that to be. So we're going to stick with our deserty colors. Keep it kind of muted. And then what could be cool is doing the seam lines or something like that blue. Now there's plenty of ways to do this more properly than me going in here and just painting it by hand. You know, if you're modeling something really nicely, it's always a good idea to try to save where those seam lines are going to be so you can go in and kind of paint them later. But you can see that my mesh is not really adhering to that, but that's okay because this is just supposed to be a fun sculpt anyway. I can mask, however, you can see the outsides here. If I grab the blue, actually, I could really just mask the top of this. And I could fill this. Now I have an outline of blue. That's kind of cool. I'm just kind of going in and kind of hand coloring and stuff. Princess asking, do I remember website generates color palettes with colors that work well together? There is a site like that, but what I use most of the time for stuff like that now is I use Procreate. So Procreate will actually, you can take like a photo. So I could actually take this photo, pop it into Procreate, and it'll generate a color palette based off of that. If you do a quick Google search, I'm sure you'll find something that does that very similarly. But it's really nice to go off of some sort of photo, because one, like the lighting and everything, you're gonna have like a real nice consistency with everything that you do, which is cool. Oh yeah, you guys can see the, oh no, spoiler, don't look at it. Just trying to save it to the end because I thought it was fun and cool looking, but that's okay. Just trying to pick some plating that I think could be cool. Oops, accidentally switched it. There we go. I think something, I went for a more simple, actually that might be kind of interesting. So, there's these poly groups to make the lines thick, but we're going to see, it might be cool if this color is lighter, but then it has the line in it to kind of give it some breakup. That's kind of fun. Again, happy accidents. I'll always play with some happy accidents. We'll take this guy. And we'll also color this as well. Also, if you have trouble selecting certain things, it's easier to usually select them at the lower subdivision and then select from there. Ashley Ross, yeah, that works. Bob Ross has a much cooler flow than I do. Happy accidents. We're just making little mech trees. Mech trees. That's all it's all about. I wish I had as soothing as a voice as he did, but I don't. Sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm gonna mask this guy because I want this color. Maybe I want this one to be a brighter color. This one I definitely want to just be blue. As you can see, it's also broken up into a bunch of different things, so I can make this first. Make this blue. These are just kitbash pieces, by the way. Oops, I filled the wrong object. But now I can go in here and add, I can grab it like these here and maybe make them a different color, right? See what happens if they're frameworked this way. But I can just mask these and bring everything back and invert it. And I can hide mask. Now I can fill the color and be like, oh, is this the color that I want? Or I can color pick this one. I can be like, oh, does that look good? Maybe I'll fill this one. I think that's fine. I think if we're gonna do this orangish color along with it, I think, the biggest thing is, when you have two really bright accented colors, it can be fine depending on what kind of style you're doing, but they also could compete too much with each other. So if I want like another color, maybe instead of it being this super, super orange, maybe it's a little bit just more muted or like almost more auburny, perhaps. You can kind of play with like what might work. Sometimes the two color accents works, but it's one of those things where right now I'm not really feeling it. I think it might be more interesting if they were just darker. Maybe some of these ones, for example, these could be, we could make these blue and see what that looks like. And later, if we wanted to, we could mask off, certain areas. It could be blue, but we could also mask the top. So it's made of like a blue fabric or whatever it may be. So we could do something like that too. So we can get more blue in there. A lot of this other stuff, I'll just make. You can make it a similar color, but for like these kitbash pieces, for example, I'll keep these close to black. But if you want a little bit more breakup, you can just pick certain sections of it. So I'll pick, I don't know, maybe this section and this section, maybe these handles too. And this is, like a blackish, but I can make it slightly lighter. And then you just get slightly more breakup. And you can keep breaking up these ways. I'm just not going to auto group them in that sense, but it'll help just adding a couple more values to just give it an extra little breakup. And then on top of that, I'll make sure that the bottom is also some sort of darker, color. So I can select, this color and fill it. So it all kind of just blends together. Because a lot of this too is, from the pose that we want to do, I want to do a pose that you can see the whole character. So I'm not going to be super worried about like those tiny little details. It's just more about giving like some sort of hint of weird elements to it. And that's totally fine. These could be blue. That would be kind of fun. Little blue fingertip. A lot of what you choose to accent is really going to be more about what the focal point is. So, for this character, if I want to know where his face is, maybe it's not. I think the blue trim is fine, but maybe we could do only blue trim around this front, and maybe the other side is going to just be darker and not the color. Because you want to draw your eye into the correct places when you're creating, color accents. So, for example, maybe his little tiny pogo feet, maybe they'll be blue tipped, right? And then his fingers will be blue tipped and the top of the shoulder is blue. So that when he's running and doing something, you can kind of pick out parts of him. And it's just easier to see and for it to be readable from a distance if you kind of have something that breaks things up that way. So that's something we could do. This is actually the one instance where I don't want pressure sensitivity, but you can just draw this down, then again hit 1, and you should be able to, you know, refill that. You can see that I made kind of a fabric choice here that goes down. You can hit 1 again. Maybe it stays cut from the wrist so it keeps the blue breakup. Going with our desert themes. You know, for something like this, like really another good example of this is picking the kneecaps, right? And we can make those blue. Stand out. So it's all about kind of hitting, you know, hitting your marks with stuff. And then things that you kind of want to fade back into, you know, something else, then you can color it differently. You know, even this thing, for example, I don't mind it being black, but you could even make it closer to this color so it blends in with that color a little more. So it doesn't stand out, because the goal again is like I don't want people to be looking down here. It's more about what's going on up here. Doing stuff like that could be, you know, helpful. And it's okay again, like I could look at this as a whole and be okay, say, you know, is this color accent too much or too little? Um, you know, I actually think that what could possibly maybe be more interesting for the face is that maybe this plate is brighter and then his actual face plate is the blue. Since it's asking if I worked on the stream off model since last week, and the answer is yes, I did. Because I wanted to make sure that we had it done in time for, whoops, today's stream. And then maybe these little pieces can be color. This is the one time I actually do want a tablet that I can see and not just my crappy little tablet, because I would be drawing and painting these much smoother. I still have a terrible hand when it comes to doing this stuff nicely, which is why it's always really helpful for, in reality, like I would want to polygroup this while I'm doing it, or doing something that allows it for easier selections later on. It'll just make your life easier, ultimately. All good for now. Also not letting me snap anymore, which is really annoying. It's only snapping in certain directions, which is weird. It was doing it a second ago, and then all of a sudden it's like, nope, I'm going to do this weird other form of snapping. I don't know. We'll play with it. And eventually we could also, you know, this is where I was saying is, you know, if I'm still like, man, I don't know about this blue, this is where we could go into that Polypaint. And we can say adjust colors, right? So if we go in here to adjust colors, we can grab this color, right? And you can see that it masks it, and then we can change the value. So without changing any of the other colors, I can go in and be like, does blue work? Or maybe this type of blue looks better, or maybe it needs to be more saturated, maybe it needs to be darker, or like maybe that feels better than this bright blue that I'm going with, right? And you can do that. You can do that with all these things. So you can have that on. You can pick this one as well. And then you can adjust that one too. Turn that one off, turn this one on, and now you can adjust just that one. So I can make it brighter if I wanted to. So yeah, you can adjust all these at the same time, or turn them all on or off, and adjust what all this looks like. And then when you're, if you're happy with all those choices, you can say okay to it if you want. But yeah, maybe like a more like kind of baby blue color could be more interesting. So you can say okay, and then, there you go. Now you've got that color. And then you'd have to just do that to the other models, which I think... I thought there was a way you could copy it. I might be crazy though. But that was not that big of a adjustment to do things. It was just turned it a bit more baby blue colored. Which you technically now you can say I can pick this, and then you can grab this, and you should be able to also say masking from mask by color. You can say by like hue, and you can see it pick that one. Then you can say fill object, right? So you could do that too. And I only want this top to be this color, and then the this can just be darker. So yeah, again, they can do the same thing where I can say mask by hue. There you go. And now I have picked my new blue, blue it. So yeah, really, it's not really that big of a deal to go back and change this stuff after the fact. Depending on how crazy you get with it. So there you go. Now we have this kind of like more baby blue color, which is just kind of feeling a little nicer overall. I just think the dark blue there was just something not really quite sitting right with me on that one. This is another way you could draw like kind of straight lines by using the masking tool in kind of clever ways. Because the lasso tool will always create a straight line. You can see the straight line when you're, creating the lasso. So you could easily kind of utilize that to create, certain lines that you want. It's obviously not fitting on the other side, but that's okay. You can adjust it later. think it'd be interesting if this was actually kind of a darker color. That way the little cloth that bits like really stand out quite a bit. And this piece, I can auto group this real quick. I think this is the only piece that lives in it. Yeah, I just want to make sure because there's a lot of pieces in this kitbash part. This is part of the spider neck parts, but it comes just standard in ZBrush. I didn't use like super special kits or anything like that. So if I auto group this, it's a lot of really crazy little parts. So it splits it into a bunch of different parts, but I probably want all these to be colored the same. So that's where you can go back into polygroups and you can say merge similar groups, and it'll base it off of vertex count. So with the same vertex count, as long as ZBrush doesn't crash. Why is this so ridiculously heavy? It should group them all according to the vertex count, which means all these should get grouped together, so long as ZBrush doesn't kind of crap the bed. And it didn't. There we go. It did it. So now we can, fill this object, and now we can hide and select these ones. And obviously it will group things sometimes in weird ways, because what's funky is these pieces happen to be the same vertex count as these pieces. So just keep that in mind. Like, it's not looking at the shape of something, it's looking at the poly count of each thing. But that's okay because it adds cool little breakup anyway. So I can go in here and maybe make these a little darker. Adding just slight value breakup will always make something feel a little more lively. It just gives things a little bit of a pop. And then if we want to, I think the best thing to do for this guy will be to do stuff like masking by peaks and valleys, or masking by, we can change the range on this to see what we get, and invert it and do like a lighter color. You just get more like textural breakup. And with mask by smoothness on things that are really rounded like this, we can, again, grab the edge of that really easily, hide that out of the mask, go back into our paint tool. We can kind of add some edge wear. Just really quick edge wear. This is more just for ZBrush's sake of painting. This is not something that I would actually bring into, like a texturing program, because they're obviously going to be way better at generating procedural textures and things like that. But for what we're doing, it's perfect. So I can hide these, I can select this color, I can be like, all right, I want this to be darker, and I can go in here and add some breakup and edge wear on stuff, just to kind of dirty up the model a little bit. And naturally, if you were to add, if we were to add some damage and stuff like that, it'll also take that into account. So that's also really nice to be able to do that. Synth is asking if I've tried Marmoset tool bags texture compared to Substance Painter, and I haven't. I would like to try it. So I use Marmoset for baking out textures. It's a really good baker, but I actually haven't really played with its texturing program all that much. I would like to try it though. I'm just so used to Substance Painter that when it comes to doing that stuff, I just tend to stick with what I know sometimes. I do want to, dive into other tools and programs and stuff for sure with that, but stuff got grayed. Why is that? That's interesting. Oh, is it because it slightly selects hue? That's interesting. I'm assuming you can just hard edge that, and that should make that go away. Yeah, that worked. Okay. Substance has updated their baking tools. I just like the hierarchy system that is in Marmoset because it's readable. You can like see the folder structure and the layers a lot cleaner, which I like a lot more. It's just a lot easier to deal with than doing it in Substance Painter. I've always had issues with the name matching for baking in Substance Painter. Um, so that's why I tend to kind of steer away from it now. And I just use Marmoset because you can clearly see what naming conventions get misaligned or aren't working with something like Marmoset Viewer. And then plus you can change the projection shell and you can do a bunch of stuff like that, which is always really, really helpful. So yeah, I just tend to stick in that one, but I would like to learn stuff. I would even like to get into 3D Coat and stuff like that. They have a lot of 3D Coat has tons of really cool, powerful tools now as well. So there's never an end to learning when it comes to learning all these 3D programs and stuff. It's just always you're always gonna feel like you're gonna run behind on the next things. The 3D Coat's a really popular one. It works super well. I think it's got some really powerful tools, and now there's definitely some stuff in it that seems pretty cool to check out. But you know, it's just a matter of time and patience. Patience is the biggest thing for me because I just get so impatient where I'm like, man, I know I could do. You know, I want to learn how to do hard surfacing better in Blender, but I'm so used to my pace and my speed that I have in ZBrush that it's really hard for me to go, okay, it's time to, you know, slow down and try to learn this new tool. Because I'm just like, man, if I was in ZBrush, I could finish it so much faster. And so, you know, that's always something that you're going to be dealing with. The struggle is real with all that stuff. I'm also going to add some fading to needs a little more color than that. It's interesting it's creating this weird line. It likes to create this line for no real oh, that's interesting. Too bad that's on the back. I think it's more fun if it was showing. Okay, okay guys. I mean, I could easily take that line and make it a blue line, which is the funny part. Be like, yeah, there's a paint. Ooh. See, it never hurts to just look at what other masks give you, because it'll kind of be it'll be really weird and random depending on what ZBrush is kind of reading on your geometry. So like this is kind of a fun one to add some extra little discoloration or breakup to stuff. Which for the sake of our model, it just helps bring it to life a bit more. As long as it's not one flat color, it'll just always feel a little more realistic. You know, because this is pretty boring, if we're going to be honest. But if we, the moment we like mask it and start playing with these edges, and that's the thing too, is we'd also change the alpha so it's more like, let's see. I mean, we could even do something like that, or something that just feels maybe a bit more randalized, like maybe this kind of alpha. And then when we pick this color, we could also throw it to like a spray, so it feels a bit more random. You know, if you wanted to do something like that. Oh yeah, so Synth was mentioning spray turn off this color thing. Was mentioning 3D Coat's really good at hand painting, and that's also what I looked at it for too, was for hand painted textures. It seems to be pretty pro at it. There's a lot of stuff that got added again to Substance Painter that is pretty good with hand painted textures and stuff too. But yeah, I was looking at it for that same reason. That's why smoothness on this cloth stuff's really fun. And create some cool breakup and stuff. Or just, you know, you can make it like slightly more saturated or darker, just to add even like a little bit of just, again, just textural detail. It doesn't look like much, but it does add a lot more than you think. I'm going to wait to colorize these for when, because we're going to pose them and these aren't going to be the final arms. So speaking of posing, we will get into that very soon. Because again, we're about at the halfway mark. Kevin's asking how controversial is Blender. I wouldn't say it's really controversial. I think a lot of people, maybe the contrary comes from it being free and it offering so many awesome pieces of software. But yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, is that it's a free piece of software, which is honestly, I think is awesome. I love Blender for that because it's got a really good, strong community. They're constantly making really cool plugins and constantly updating and creating cool stuff. That keeps Blender pretty up to date, and you can make some really cool projects within just Blender alone. And also, if you're like a beginning 3D artist, you know, and you don't know what you want to do yet, you know, and you're trying to experiment and find, you know, maybe something in the pipeline that interests you or something cool. A really easy way to be able to kind of try out everything, because it has sculpting, it has texturing, it has hard surface modeling, it has animation, it has rigging. Like you can do all of it. So you know, you might dive into that and be like, oh wow, I didn't know I liked rigging, or I didn't realize I was really into texturing stuff. And you know, you don't have to pay a bunch of money for a software yet to just try to play around and experiment with stuff. So I always think that's kind of the cool part about Blender the most, is that it's very cool for people who want to play with different mediums within 3D without having to learn a bunch of new softwares. So, since it's also asking, is this the last character for this week? And the answer is yes. We'll be posing him. We're at the halfway point, so we're getting there. I gotta hurry my butt up. Oh, another technique too. Like if you want to colorize a bunch of stuff, maybe you want this to be, you know, kind of faded or whatever. You can hide it and you can change the intensity, and then you can say fill object, and it will like slowly kind of fill the object with that intensity, so it's not so dramatic. You can play with stuff that way. That's really interesting. It's doing some funky stuff with this guy, so that's where you can just mask that, and you can change this to say fill object, just to get some like breakup underneath there. Yeah, I think we're at a pretty good spot color-wise. And it's getting to that halfway point, so I think it will be good to get in and start posing. So the idea is I wanted him to be, you know, he's going to be on a full-on sprint and maybe doing a half Naruto run, right? Because he's going to have his things flying. But I did a really cool little experiment because I was talking about how this character plays with sand. That was one of the initial ideas of the character. So I went ahead and tried out doing a nano mesh on like a big flat plane and just made some patterns on it. So if I show the geometry here, if I show it, you can see that it's actually just, I took a giant plane and subdivided it and I masked it using that clip circle mask to create these and then polygrouped it. And all these are just tiny little squares. But when you turn them off and you look at them from a whole, I feel like they replicated what sand was kind of supposed to look like when it does those cool like sound patterns. So I was like, ooh, this could be, you know, I was like, oh, this is kind of fun to play with. So, you know, I want him to be maybe running and throwing this out or something in front of him so it looks like a protective wall or something like that. But yeah, so it's a really, technically with nanomesh, you can kind of get something that feels particly, right? And this is just a bunch of little tiny cubes. It's also really cheap because it's not actually geometry yet. So it doesn't really cost me anything. It just cost me the cost of this plane here. And the rest is just a preview, but it'll render out this way. So we'll see what we can do with that. But I thought it'd be cool if he was kind of like throwing that up as he was running. Or something could be interesting where maybe when he hits the ground, this is the pattern that generates when he's running. So I'm not really sure yet what we'll do with it, but I just wanted to show that I have that kind of prepared as well. But I think he's going to be like running and twisting, and he's going to be like throwing it up. Or maybe they'll, I don't know, maybe his little weapons or his little sharp spear thingies can generate it. Like maybe it generates like a little sand disc that actually cuts things. I don't know. We could play with that. That would actually be kind of fun. But I wouldn't make these blades. I would turn them into like little weird looking speaker things, which we could easily do because again, remember we based it off of, it's just a brush that we used. It's based off of this. So I could easily take this and turn it circular. So if you guys have an opinion, if you guys like that idea, he could be basically throwing like big sand discs. We could duplicate that along where his arms would be. So that could be kind of fun. But anyway, I'm going to get into posing first, and then we can figure that stuff out later. Yeah, it'd be like Tron, but with sand, right? So it could be fun. So I'm going to go ahead and hide everything that isn't important, again, for posing, which is also these arms, because these arms are just curve meshes. So I'm going to pose them using the curve brush later. So I don't actually have to worry about posing those. And again, all this stuff is as subdivisions for the most part, except the kitbash and pieces. But thankfully, because it's hard surface, I don't have to worry about trying to rotate these. These are just going to rotate with, you know, the model in a really simple, hard surfacey way. Same thing with like the stuff here. Speaking of which, I mean, it shouldn't keep these polygroups. Everything when you do TPose should just turn into its own polygroup, but I'm going to do that anyway because I don't need those auto groups anymore. It's just like too many things to deal with. So there we go. Now we have our little character without our arms. Oh, also note, I am using Booleans to whoop, whoop, turn myself around there. I am using Booleans here, but they're like this. But just keep in mind that it's going to look like this in the transpose master. But we're just going to pose them together and then it'll reshape itself and re-Boolean. Even this, though, I actually don't really hate it not being Boolean. Like, that would also kind of work. But yeah, my initial one, it's actually just using live Booleans to cut those out. All right. So let's get into transpose master. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the cloth here. Grab my Z plugin. Oh, my buddy from behind the curtains is telling me to save. Thank you, buddy. He's right. He's definitely right. I do too much work and then things crash and I'm like, oh no, I have to do it all. ZBrush is really good about saving though. It's actually been surprisingly good about saving. But yeah, transpose master, you never know. So we'll go transpose master, go ahead and TPose this mesh. It'll run its little thing. It's going to grab the lowest of everything and bring it into a tool and merge it all down together. And then we have a task of separating out what moves together and what doesn't, which for this shouldn't be too bad. A lot of this stuff is just going to be moving and rotating as one big object. So this guy's going to be one part, that's just his head, but all this stuff is going to move together. I hid the head, but we can just go. So all these pieces. Oh, not these pieces though. That's always good to note is all these little nuts and bolts are part of the same subtool. So they're going to be a bit more of a pain in the beginning to get rid of, but we can just shrink it. And then once we polygroup it, we don't have to worry about it. But the easier way to combat that is to just separate them into their more of like location parts. So these ones were on the arm, so you'd split them to the arm. These would split to the head, so on and so forth. Go ahead and grab those. Same thing with these. So this green part is shared with all these, which is, this isn't going with the rest of this stuff. So that's where I'm going to turn off dynamic perspective. So that's where we can hide all these. Whoops. So I can group that, and now I can take my red and take the green, because that's all going together, and I can regroup that all together as one piece. Here we go. I can grab the arms. I like to grab, you can grab both sides at the same time if you want to. Oop, I'm going to hide these guys. Hide these guys. You can see it's more of a pain when you don't split them off by location, but again, it's not the end of the world. So I actually will hide these again. I want that as one group, and then we can split these off. Group that. I can grab these dudes, doohickeys. That will rotate as one. There we go. And now I can grab this spine with this and that. That'll be grouped as one. Gonna be pretty careful about trying not to really move this guy. If we wanted to later, we could actually group that separately to be able to mask it easier. If he's going to rotate like crazy. But I imagine we're going to rotate at the hips and then at the top to give him like the contrapposto look. So I'm not too worried about it. I'm going to go ahead and grab these. Okay, these are all the same thing. These are not. So I want to grab this one, polygroup those, so that way they're easier to group together. So I'm going to have this guy group with these. Fun little game, isn't it? Also, all of these go with that guy too. Because this doesn't actually rotate, right? It rotates here. So all that goes together, and we'll rotate that way. And each cylinder does go with a certain rotation. So that way it's easier to select. So when I select this dude, I'm just going to select it right here. And now I can rotate that from that joint with ease. And same thing with being able to select this one, and now I can rotate, whoop, not scale, and then I can rotate these with ease, right? So grab all these guys. The joint is hidden within there, so I don't really have to worry about that. But this will probably pivot together. This will probably rotate just kind of separately on itself for now. I can always adjust where those sit if they get kind of wonky. And now that we have both sides, it's really easy to just turn off symmetry and hide one side. And then now we have, you know, both sides polygroup properly, because these will all be being moved separately. And there we go. So I think that's all the polygroups that we need for this guy to start rotating. And now we'll get him starting to run. So because he's a robot, he could twist really crazily. So I think it'll be cool to put him at like a, I don't know, I kind of want him almost at like an angle. So he'll be like kind of really turning and twisting a lot, and a lot of his weight will be kind of like crossed and shifting, almost like as if he's making like a really tight hairpin turn at like a high speed or something. I think that could be really, really, really fun. So I'm gonna start with him. Do I want to start with him this way, or do I want to turn him? Yeah, I think this will work. Let's see what happens. That's what always people say, right? When we know what we're doing. Let's see what happens. So this will be weird, but I want this angle for sure. So that's why I'm starting there, because it's going to help me with the gesture. I think I want so his back leg is going to be crossed backwards, but this guy's he's got to find where that plumb line is, or where that line rotation. I think it'll be cool to put like a really intense bend later onto I mean, I could technically do it now by just masking it, but we could have a really cool tight bend where his pogo, you know, is like touching the ground and like really compressing or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool. So then I'm going to grab these guys, mask the rest, and again I can hit Alt and snap it to that joint, right? And now I'm going to get that joint. Kind of the handy part of just having these cylinders here. So I'm going to outstretch that guy. Until we get him into like an actual pose, I'm not going to worry too much about where the tilt is yet. I just want to kind of get the basic placement of everything first before getting too nitpicky. Because again, until I put everything in the right spot, I'm not going to be able to tell exactly where all this stuff's going to go. I think I also want to put kind of like a rotation in the torso as well, or not in the legs and arms as well. So I'll grab this dude, I'll mask it. Snap this to where I think that, you know, pivot would be. It's an imaginary pivot, but because I kind of want to rotate his arms even more, or his hips even more, because then the top I'll mask this part. We're going to find maybe where this pivot point could be. And this is where I can grab this dude. I can be very careful. This is going to get a little warped, but that's okay because this is also just a curve brush. So if this part gets messed up, I can just redraw it anyway. So it's not really a big deal, but I'm going to kind of grab this section. Kind of like that. So when I twist it, it kind of goes with it. It's not going to be perfect, and that's okay because again, I can redraw this curve out after the fact. He looks like a little T-Rex. It's fun. But yeah, I want to turn this a little bit, and then I can mask this again, and then I can turn this a lot a bit if I want to. A lot of bit, I want to turn the head more. Because again, I picture that he can like almost rotate. In reality, I want him to be able to almost rotate like 360, so he can like spin. So I want to be able to sell that idea. You know, because I picture him being able to be like, whoa, like he could turn even all the way around, but like, swah, and then slice people. But I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I just want them to be like a really big twist in this. And then we can isolate the head. I can pick where that pivot point would probably be, right? Just somewhere like back here. And then I can have him turning and looking forward if I want. It's always good to have, pelvis facing this way, torso facing this way, head facing the opposite. It makes for a super dynamic looking pose because I want him to be kind of looking at, his arm is going to be throwing up that sand shield, or maybe his other arm will be throwing up the sand, or his noodle arms will be throwing up the sand shield, right? So rotate this up. I can select this and still grab this pivot point, and then bring back my mask, and now I can still have that pivot point where I want it to be. Because maybe grabbing this is a little harder, right? Because there's no center line. But I lined these up based on that center line, so they should move okay. And then I can mask this. Kind of in the middle, so that way when you twist it, you can get like the proper twisting motion a little bit. Then we can mask it more. Twist it a bit more. And then at some point we can just grab where the wrist is, bring that up. We can close these little hands. Or maybe he could run like Neo. I think his fingers are kind of adorable for some reason. Funny looking. And then we'll draw this dude back. Find that pivot point somewhere in there. Remember, these are Boolean, so if they intersect, it's okay. Yeah, see, that's a pretty cool angle, right? You can really see the twisting that's happening. That's a lot of fun. I like. I think his face needs to point even more forward somehow. You can do something maybe like that. And then what's kind of fun is we could be careful and grab his hood, expand it. There we go. Mask that. Bring it back, invert it, and then we can always adjust this later, but I'm just showing you, you could adjust it now. And we can make sure that that hood is kind of following him. Whoops. A little bit. Just so that it feels like there's a bit of a squash and then a stretch coming. Cool. So now that we have this, we can try to see where that balance would be as far as his leg, and see if maybe there's a happy medium. Now that we have the whole pose, it's a little easier to find like what's going to look good. Maybe his leg can outturn a little bit too. Kind of like that. And then what we can do is find a way to make this feel like compressed. And that's kind of flattening out the bottom because it's hitting something flat. So it'll sell the lean more if this feels like it's getting flattened at the bottom. And this isn't perfect, but we can adjust this later. I want to make sure that it feels kind of getting that warped feeling. So obviously if you sit like that on it, then he really feels like he's in motion. And running across dunes. And you could do something similar where maybe this springboards back a bit, which we could even kind of snap the pivot point there and see what it would look like if we kind of like spring this back. Again, is it realistic? A little bit, but if we stretch this out more than we think, like it'll sell the fact that it's, that he's really stretching and running. I also think looking at it from far away, I think this needs to come out more. Maybe rotate in this way. Yeah, that feels pretty good. You can see that the pivot point is kind of funky, but that's okay. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Again, when we talk about posing, a lot of people will say, you know, you need to find like a plumb line, which basically means the center line. So if you look at where he is, um, the his mass should sit evenly. That's what normally you would say for like a good pose, but that's for a pose that's balanced. When we're running, um, running is just planned falling. And so is walking. Walking is an anticipated fall, basically. We're falling forward. So to exaggerate motion and movement, you actually kind of want to do the opposite. Um, is you want him to feel kind of off balance. Like he kind of should feel slightly off balance because he's turning and it's like a purposeful fall, right? So again, keeping those rules in mind and then being able to break it later. So I think this is good. So now we're going to go ahead and go back to TPose sub T, and then we'll draw out our crazy arms, and we can either throw the sand discs onto those, or we could do something where you know, I can always pose his hand up and have it look like he's making a shield, but I'm not really sure yet. We're going to play with what we can, you know, what we can do story wise. It's thinking real hard. I hope it doesn't crash. That would be very annoying. It usually doesn't take this long. Favorite robot from a movie? Go as we wait. Oh, there. Okay, there we go. Whew, that was give me the scares. A little worried there. There we go. Parts are a moving and a grooving. I was doing a lot of thinking. That was very scary. Okay, cool. Nice. It did. There we go. And now we can save this dude as I always will say 05 to match it with what the final thing is, but I'll say posed. There we go. Cool. So now we have this dude all nice posed. You can see the booleans went along just fine with it, and all that jazz. So we're good to go. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with the way that looks and turned out. So now we can draw on our curves if we want to. We can also fix this hot mess while we're at it, right? So I can go ahead and just delete that. And I can grab this dude again. This doesn't have subdivisions for that reason. I can kind of smooth it out. I can move this around a little bit. Oh, symmetry is still on. Don't need symmetry anymore. So I can kind of adjust where that's going to sit a little better. And now I'll, I think I still have it. Let's see. Yeah, because I just made it. And now we can this down like this. We can check out where that is supposed to sit, and we can kind of play and adjust it. It went a little too long. That's okay. We can go up to stroke. We can turn on liquid. So we can turn on liquid, and I can pull this up, and it can get a little shorter. And there we go. And now I can move this around and adjust this. It's going to be angry at me. Oh, don't be angry. Go back to where you were. Thank you. It was kind of freaking out because of all the other stuff that was shown. Wow, it really doesn't like me today. That's okay. That's okay. Just be nice. Can we just say that's close enough? I think we can just say it's close enough. I can split mass points, and then I can um, fill object, and I can push that in to where it's supposed to go a little bit. And that's fine. Can you really tell? It's all good. Yeah, so liquid is a cool curved mode where if you draw it too long, you can kind of like dial it back. Or another thing you can do with it is if you have liquid on, you can pull down. You can see it will keep going. But if you then start bend end, you lock it, and then you pull it, you can lock in. You can create a really long chain. So the nice part about this is I can turn off liquid for a second. If I drag this out, so what's cool is I can lock, start, lock in, turn on liquid, and then I can drag this down, turn off liquid, and then I can move this and basically get a nice dangle or like a hang, right? Without moving where my points are. So that's really nice. And then once you have that, I mean, you can turn on liquid again. You can just keep pulling this down as much as you want. Or again, another nice tip with it is if you go too long, if you're too long, you can just kind of keep going back until you have the length that you want. So you can grow it in and out. Yeah, that's that tool. Very useful. All right. Go back to this. So now we have our, I'm going to turn on everything again. There we go. Because I want to look at this dude, right? Because I don't have this saved as a brush. But I have this, but we could, I'm tempted to try to, I'm going to expand this selection, mask it, and I'm going to make this maybe more circular. Because maybe it's still a blade, but I think it'd be cool to put the sand things along them. So I just wanted to feel slightly more circular so I can kind of do that nicer. And another way I can do that is to delete this crease in here. So I can go to crease, edge loop complete. I can hold Alt to get rid of that crease, and now it'll circle out. So I can do that. And then I can, now that it's got the proper triparts to it, so I can just go to my insert mesh. I can say create insert mesh, do a new one, go back up to curve mode, and then go to my brush settings. And just make sure that down in here, there's going to be triparts, weld points I like to turn on, and stretch. So now I'm going to delete this, so I don't need these guys anymore. So now I have this, and I just want to make sure that I picked something to draw out of that gives me like a decent reference point that also doesn't have divisions. So I can literally just pick the joint parts themselves. I'll probably start from a top view to figure out how I want them to be spaced out. So I'll do from a top view. Grab my insert mesh, and I'll draw out the first one. Oh, that's right. This was flipped, huh? So I'm just going to turn on double because it doesn't matter. And obviously, this is a Boolean mesh, so when I turn off solo, it will hide away because it's being subtracted. So just keep that in mind. But again, I can move these back to a proper spot. I just want to drag it out first. So I want to make sure that, you know, I have this that's going to come up underneath it, and then I can have this. I can kind of start playing with this. Um, Other thing I want to do is I want to bend start, bend end, and lock these. So when I move them, they will stay where I want them to. So I can put this there. And now when I move this, you'll see that it'll act more accordingly. I can turn on wireframe to see what it will look like with the model itself. I can adjust it that way. Always good to add some depth to these things. Meaning, you know, I drew it out flat like this, so just make sure that from the side you can see it properly. I think that one is okay. So now I'll say split to mass points. And I'll just make sure that this is no longer on a Boolean. So I can just either bring this up and do that. And now we have, oops, now we have this dude, which now I can, you know, shove that into the right socket area. And if I need to move it or, you know, turn it around a little bit to let it not crash, I can. So we have something like that. I think it'd be cool if maybe the other one's getting like thrown out the front because he's kind of throwing his arm. So again, his arms are kind of acting like his other arms. The ones in the back, I'll have them probably splaying backwards, like as if they're wrapping around from the force or something like that. So it leaves like these cool tail trails. Whereas this one maybe is more on the hunt. I can figure out this one's going to be the weirder one to figure out where exactly it could go. But we can just keep drawing them out and see where we get. So I'm going to draw out the next one. Oh, it's so annoying. It's so long. So if you don't want this to happen, it's going to snap to anything that it sees, right? Which can be useful. It can be a very useful tool and helpful. But in this case, I want to drag them out nice and straight, right? And then adjust it on my own. So the way to do that is you go to your picker, and there's going to be a depth option. Instead of constant Z, change this to once Z. And so now what happens when I drag this out is it'll stay on the same plane like that. So now I can go in and adjust this. This is fun because it reminds me of like Doc Ock. It's like Doctor. And silhouette wise, I think it would be cool if this was like turning this way. And again, if I feel like I don't have enough topology or like length for that, that's where again that liquid tool could come in handy again. But I think I'll be okay. I'm also not worried about trying to make these the same length. I just want it to look cool. I'm just about making it look cool right now. That's all I care about. Oops. I want to face this kind of that way. You can also, if you want to twist it, you can click and hold Control, and it should twist it. Yeah, you can see it'll start to twist. It'll be a little weird. Looks like it doesn't want to twist the part that I actually want to twist. So I can go in there later and twist it. You're being so annoying. So yeah, I kind of want to twist that one later and turn it into something. So yeah, I'm just trying to make sure that I get that socket in there. Now it's twisting and running out like that. Just kind of fun. So I want to feel like he's like running and controlling that thing. And now I can tap when I'm happy with that because it's a part of the same thing. And now I can draw the other ones out. So again, he's turning and really tilted. So I think it'll be cool to have this one kind of come out like that. adjust where the placement of this stuff is. So I like to get the start point in there first, right? And then from there, now I can adjust, whoops, how that's gonna fall. Because now that point's not gonna move. So now I can go in and adjust this stuff. Do I want it lower? That looks like it's kind of following from the trail, right? Because I want it to feel like it's kind of lagging behind and following along with him as he's about to make this like turn. Right, so adding that cool overlap and making sure that it's kind of flowing in, oops, this direction. Oops, I changed the size of my brush. Yeah, make sure if you're changing the draw size, you're changing it on the blue cursor and not the red one. So I'll change the size of your brush. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. All right, cool. So we got that one, and then we have one more, which I think will kind of flow within this one, and maybe it'll cross or something. I'm not really sure yet, but we'll drag it out. And get that in there. Because I have lock start and lock end on, if the endpoint's too far away, it won't allow you to move the endpoint in where you need it to. So just keep that in mind as well. If you want it to go underneath, you can just kind of drag it underneath there. I think this one is looking a little too long in comparison to the other ones, I think. So again, I can turn on liquid and from the top, I should be able to kind of pull that back, turn it off again, and readjust it. Looks pretty cool. A lot of stuff going on there. Cool. So I'm trying to see if I like where this one is, or if I want this one to come like down and then point back up, or come down and around or something. I could try that. And if I could keep this if I want to, I can just grab this and then just say split hidden. So I can split it and then hide it. And then I can just draw out the other one with this stuff again. So I can drag this one out. Shoop. Turn off perspective for now because it'll throw you off a little bit. Plug that one in. Now I can kind of snake this one down and try to find like a cool spot Yeah, I mean, curve brushes you have to kind of just play with a lot and kind of just move around and see what you think of them and how they feel. This is feeling a little too long, so I can turn on liquid and bring that back. So yeah, it's just very minor adjustments to get this to feel, and I want the silhouette to read pretty well and stuff too. Um, Obviously, a lot of that too depends on camera angle. If I do something like this, maybe I want that to eventually rotate. This isn't bad, and the way the tails are going. If I turn on perspective, it'll really push those tails back into space, which is cool. Or if he's running this way, So when you're trying to do, something like a maquette, you do want to look at all angles and see if this reads properly and reads the way you want it to. I think that's pretty fun. So pretty happy with that. And now that we have this, now we should be able to, I'm going to go ahead and save this before I do it because why not? And I'm going to try to do, it's not super heavy, so it should be fine, but I'm going to do a auto group. And then I'm going to say merge similar groups. And then it should give me all the ones that, the ribbing should be the same. So now I can select this guy. Select this, oops. I can now select the tubes, basically. That's what I want. I want to color them a little darker. So I can do something like that. Just so now you can see the breakup that we had within that. Cool. So now that we have that, I can grab this thing's hard to grab when the geometry is turned off. But now I can grab our little disc dude. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to turn on the placement because I can't see where my gizmo's at. Nanomesh. Show placement. Cool. Drag out that gizmo. Now I can hide it, that I have it. And I duplicated it, so can rotate this. We might only need one because otherwise it might get like kind of crazy and busy. But we can do something. Oops, I accidentally am rendering it. My bad. There we go. Yeah, we can do something like that. And later also, it's really actually easy to do this. If I show placement on this, I could actually just hide this top half and see what that looks like too, right? So we could play with just what the top of this would look like. So it's like a big sand blade that would come out and adjust accordingly. So it's not like an entire whole thing. Oh, I bent the sphere. That's cool. So yeah, we could definitely play with what that's going to be doing or how that's going to be doing something. But I think it would be cool if we do something like that, and then we can take this one and grab this section here, and I can, mask that. And drag that down, just that way they're not intruding on each other. Cyntha's asking, what's the difference between nanomesh and micromesh? So micromesh, it kind of functions as the same, but it's more for like tiling and stitching really complicated textures together. So what you can do with nano mesh isn't exactly the same. You can get close, but it's not quite the same. They won't stitch together. Nano mesh is just a bunch of individual shapes that could look like one shape. Whereas micro mesh will actually, if you want to stitch it, will actually stitch stuff together. And also the way it flows with topology is like a little different and stuff too. If I remember correctly, I don't use micro mesh all that much because a lot of stuff that I would use micro mesh on are things that work better just to create like a texture. I also want to color these now. But if I want to do that, I have to make it a mesh. So I can say one to mesh. And then I can just grab this. Oh, wait. Hide this. There's multiple, so I want to say all. And then that should make one for me. Or am I crazy? I'm not crazy. Yeah, okay, that did it. I'm not crazy. Me. There we go. Delete hidden. Okay. That's what I wanted. There we go. It's being weird. Because I wanted to take it and color it into like sand or whatever. It got what? Wait a second. Where's my little tiny? That's what I want. Why are you being so dumb? Do I have to do this twice to get it? I didn't think I had to do that. That's really weird. So if I duplicate, hold on, let me duplicate this. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to figure this out before we're going because this is the final thing anyway. So I'm going to have one to mesh. I swear this is what I did before. Maybe I accidentally deleted it. That's super weird. Look how many I have now just to figure out this one stupid thing. It's so silly. Okay, there they are. I don't know. That was weird. Anyway, all right, I'm happy now. I'll delete the rest of these. Because I have my original one down here. Yeah. Cool. Now I'm just going to hide all the things that I don't need to see. They're very distracting. And there we go. So if I wanted to, I could also probably put, you know, I could take this dude, duplicate it. Oh, yeah. And maybe do one more on the side or something. Maybe they could be different sizes. But he feels magician-y now, right? He's doing some magical sand stuff. Yeah, magic sand stuff. So I'll go ahead and make that smaller. So there we go. There you have it. There's our Dervish mech sand magician dude. Dr. Strangebot. Yeah, I love it. Basically, right? Yeah, so this was super fun. This was definitely unexpected as far as what we kind of did for this guy. But I suppose it's fun. It'd be really fun to add some, you know, little plane and have him run. You could easily add more particles to make him look like he's running on sand and stuff, um, and play with all that. But yeah, super fun to play with. And if you frame this dude right, it'd be cool that you could see his face within these cool little pieces. Can see what it looks like rendered maybe. ZBrush render is never fun. We can always try. One of these days, I'll have to actually download the new ZBrush and do Redshift and try to do some Redshift rendering. But yeah, so super fun to play with. Again, maybe this might be too much for like a render to have this, but I think the idea is cool. And the idea is pretty fun. Where he like reverberates cool sand and stuff and uses it as like a cool little shield and whatnot. So there you have it. All right, you guys. Well, we made good time today. We poly painted and we posed, and now we're happy with our character. And go ahead and join me. This is the wrap up of this character, but we'll be starting a new character next week. And again, we're going to be going with the same theme of like this cool desert theme. My idea is personally that we'll do something along the lines of a creature that he'll, maybe possibly fight with this stuff. And you get to decide whether the creature's the bad one or not. But I think it'll be, the Dervish and what would be considered maybe the monster, so the thing that fights sporadically and crazily, or kind of with, no flow or no organization whatsoever, versus this character that fights like very specifically, and more thoughtfully. So I think that would be a fun contrast to play. And then we get to play with some creature design stuff. So sweet. Thank you guys for joining me, and pleasure as always. But I will catch you next week. And this is me signing off. Bye.